This wasn't diplomacy. This wasn't negotiation. This was the supreme leader of Iran drawing a red line in blood, delivered in a televised address that sent shockwaves through every American military installation across the Middle East. And the timing is no accident. Whilst President Trump assembles the largest naval armada since the Gulf War, whilst American B-52 bombers arm bunker-busting weapons, whilst thousands of protesters lie dead in Iranian streets, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei just issued the most dangerous warning of his 36-year reign. Any American military intervention will trigger regional war. Not a bilateral conflict, not a contained strike, a conflagration that engulfs the entire Middle East in flames. We have obtained the full transcript. We have tracked the diplomatic panic. We have documented the military preparations on both sides. And what we have uncovered reveals two nuclear-armed powers hurtling toward collision with no off-ramp in sight. Click the link below. You must witness this before the missiles fly. Tehran, Islamic Republic of Iran, February 1st, 2026. The capital awoke this morning to the voice of its supreme leader echoing across state television in remarks that military analysts are characterizing as the most explicit threat of regional warfare since the Iranian Revolution of 1979. Speaking from an undisclosed location, his face framed by the green and white colors of the Iranian flag and a portrait of Grand Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini hanging behind him, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei addressed the Iranian nation and the world with language that left no room for misinterpretation. Quote, "Any United States military intervention will undoubtedly be accompanied by irreparable damage. The damage the Americans will suffer will be far greater than any harm that Iran may encounter. American involvement in this matter is 100% to their own detriment." Unquote. Irreparable damage, 100% detriment. These are not the words of deterrence. These are the words of preparation for total war. And the target of Khamenei's warning set thousands of miles away aboard Air Force One, where President Donald Trump responded with characteristic defiance and ominous ambiguity. When asked directly whether the United States is moving closer to striking Iranian nuclear facilities, Trump stated, quote, "I may do it, I may not do it. Nobody knows what I'm going to do. I can tell you this. Iran's got a lot of trouble. They want to negotiate." Unquote. He then added what reporters present characterized as an ultimate ultimatum, though he declined to specify its exact terms or timeline. Welcome back. What you are about to hear is a comprehensive deconstruction of the most perilous 72 hours in United States-Iranian relations since the hostage crisis of 1979. We shall examine Khamenei's explicit warnings, analyze Trump's escalating military deployments, scrutinize the diplomatic efforts frantically attempting to forestall catastrophe, and expose the terrifying reality that regional powers hosting American military bases may refuse to allow their territory to be used for strikes against their Muslim neighbor. This is the Regional Inferno Warning. To comprehend why Khamenei's statement represents such a dangerous escalation, we must understand the context in which it was delivered. Iran currently faces the most severe convergence of internal and external pressures in the history of the Islamic Republic. Internally, the regime just concluded the bloodiest crackdown on domestic protest since the revolution. According to the human rights activist news agency, a credible overseas monitoring organization, at least 6,500 people perished during 2 weeks of demonstrations that erupted in late December 2025 over crushing economic hardship. The protesters were killed by live ammunition, mass beatings, and systematic executions carried out by Revolutionary Guard forces and paramilitary Basij militia. Khamenei himself acknowledged the scale of violence in a separate address on January 17th, stating that actors linked to the United States and Israel were responsible for killing, quote, "several thousands," unquote, during the unrest. This marked the first time Iran's top authority publicly confirmed casualties numbering in the thousands, a figure that aligns with independent human rights documentation but vastly exceeds the regime's initial official counts. Khamenei explicitly accused President Trump of personal involvement in fomenting the protests, characterizing him as a criminal whose hands are stained with the blood of Iranians. The supreme leader's fury stems from Trump's public statements throughout the crisis, wherein the American president repeatedly threatened military intervention if Iranian security forces continued killing demonstrators. Externally, Iran confronts the most substantial American military deployment in its waters since the build-up to the Iraq invasion of 2003. The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group, comprising the nuclear-powered aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln, hosting 60 combat aircraft, multiple Ticonderoga-class guided missile cruisers, Arleigh Burke-class destroyers bristling with Tomahawk cruise missiles, and Los Angeles-class attack submarines, entered the Arabian Sea earlier this week and is currently steaming toward operational strike positions off the Iranian coastline. Additionally, B-52 Stratofortress strategic bombers capable of carrying the GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator, the only conventional weapon in the American arsenal designed to destroy Iran's deeply buried nuclear enrichment facilities at Fordow and Natanz, have been forward deployed to undisclosed locations within the theater. President Trump has characterized this assembled firepower as a massive armada moving quickly with great power, enthusiasm, and purpose, ready, willing, and able to rapidly fulfill its mission with speed and violence if necessary. The phrase speed and violence is identical to language Trump employed immediately prior to ordering the military operation that captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in January 2026. The parallel is unmistakable and intentional. Trump is signaling his willingness to execute regime change operations against governments he deems hostile to American interests, regardless of international law or allied objections. But Iran is not Venezuela. Venezuela possessed virtually no capacity to retaliate against American military action beyond symbolic gestures. Iran commands one of the most sophisticated ballistic missile arsenals in the developing world, with documented strike ranges exceeding 2,000 kilometers, sufficient to target every American military installation across the Middle East simultaneously. According to classified Pentagon estimates leaked to defense journalists, over 30,000 American military personnel are currently stationed across 8 major installations throughout the region. Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar hosts the forward headquarters of United States Central Command. Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia houses American fighter squadrons and strategic bombers. Multiple naval facilities throughout Bahrain serve as home port for the United States Fifth Fleet. All exist within effective range of Iranian medium-range precision-guided missiles and advanced unmanned aerial vehicle systems, according to public warnings issued by Iranian military spokesman Brigadier General Abolfazl Shakarki on January 28. This is not rhetorical posturing. This is a calculated threat assessment based on demonstrated Iranian strike capability. During the brief 12-day conflict between Israel and Iran in June 2025, wherein the United States provided intelligence, targeting data, and direct air support to Israeli strikes against Iranian nuclear and military facilities, Iran launched approximately 400 ballistic missiles and hundreds of explosive drones toward Israeli territory, while Israeli air defenses intercepted the majority of incoming projectiles. Some penetrated and struck apartment buildings in central Israel, killing at least 24 people and wounding hundreds. The psychological impact of sustained air raid sirens forcing millions of Israelis into bomb shelters for days on end cannot be quantified, but profoundly shook Israeli society. If Iran launches its full arsenal in retaliation for American strikes, casualty projections become catastrophic for both American forces scattered across vulnerable bases and civilian populations throughout allied nations hosting those installations. This brings us to the most significant dimension of Khamenei's warning: regional war. Iran's foreign ministry spokesman Esmail Baghaei amplified the supreme leader's threat in an interview with Al Jazeera on Wednesday, stating explicitly that American intervention would be a recipe for an all-out war in the region. Baghaei then delivered a statement that sent tremors through the Pentagon. Quote, "We have very good relations with Arab countries, and they are very cognizant of the fact that Israel has been trying to drag others into the war. We are sure our Arab countries hosting United States bases would not allow their territory to be used against their Muslim neighbors." unquote. This represents Iran's strategic gambit. Tehran is publicly calling upon regional powers, specifically Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and the United Arab Emirates, to deny the United States permission to launch strikes from bases located on their sovereign territory. If these nations comply with Iranian pressure, American military options become severely constrained. Carrier-based aircraft possess limited strike range and payload capacity compared to land-based bombers. Without access to forward air bases, sustained bombing campaigns targeting deeply buried nuclear facilities become logistically problematic, if not impossible. Diplomatic sources confirm that Turkey, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Oman are frantically engaged in shuttle diplomacy attempting to forestall military conflict. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi met with Turkish counterpart Hakan Fidan in Istanbul on Friday, specifically to coordinate regional responses to American military threats. According to reporting from Al Jazeera correspondents on the ground in Tehran, Araghchi emphasized that Iran remains ready to return to negotiations with the United States, insisting diplomacy constitutes the only viable path to resolving escalating tensions. However, Araghchi simultaneously maintained Iran's categorical refusal to accept American preconditions for negotiations, specifically demands that Tehran curtail its ballistic missile program and provide unconditional access to nuclear facilities. Quote, Iran is prepared for either negotiation or confrontation. We will not disarm ourselves to appease Washington's demands. Unquote. This intransigence virtually guarantees continued escalation absent a face-saving compromise that neither side appears willing to offer. President Trump has publicly stated he sent a letter directly to Ayatollah Khamenei urging Tehran to negotiate over its nuclear program and warning of potential military action if Iran refused. Araghchi characterized the letter as more of a threat, but acknowledged it also presented opportunities, adding that Tehran is evaluating its response. Khamenei himself has previously rejected Trump's overtures, accusing the American president of portraying the United States as open to talks whilst framing Iran as unwilling, thereby constructing a narrative justification for eventual military strikes. The Supreme Leader's fundamental position, reiterated across multiple public addresses, remains uncompromising. Quote, Wise individuals who know Iran, its people, and its history never speak to this nation with the language of threats, because the Iranian nation is not one to surrender. Unquote. Yet Trump's threats have intensified rather than moderated. On Tuesday, the president posted to his Truth Social platform a message that intelligence analysts characterized as unprecedented in its directness and provocation. Quote, We know exactly where the so-called Supreme Leader is hiding. He is an easy target, but is safe there. We're not going to take him out, kill, at least not for now. But we don't want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers. Our patience is wearing thin. Unquote. Trump concluded the message with a demand in capital letters: unconditional surrender. The phrase unconditional surrender carries immense historical weight, evoking Allied demands to Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan during World War II. Its use in contemporary diplomacy toward a sovereign nation-state is virtually unprecedented and signals Trump's view of Iran not as a negotiating partner, but as an enemy to be defeated and occupied. Khamenei responded to Trump's threat by dismissing what he termed the threatening and absurd statements emanating from Washington. In his televised address on Wednesday, the Supreme Leader stated that American military intervention would result in damage to the United States far exceeding any harm Iran might suffer, a calculation based on Iran's capacity to strike American forces and close the Strait of Hormuz, through which approximately 20% of globally traded oil transits daily. Closure of the strait, even temporarily, would trigger oil prices exceeding $200 per barrel within days, collapsing global equity markets and plunging industrialized economies dependent upon Middle Eastern petroleum into severe recession. Iran demonstrated this capability during live-fire naval exercises conducted last Sunday and Monday directly within the traffic separation scheme, the narrow commercial shipping corridor through which every supertanker entering or exiting the Persian Gulf must navigate. The exercises, conducted by Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps naval forces, employing small fast attack craft in swarming tactics, prompted United States Central Command to issue a strongly worded public warning, stating the American military would not tolerate unsafe actions that increase risks of collision, escalation, and destabilization. The convergence of military forces in confined waters creates conditions wherein a single miscalculation, an accidental collision, an overzealous commander opening fire, could ignite the very conflagration both sides claim they wish to avoid. We are witnessing the final countdown to a conflict that neither superpower genuinely desires, but both feel politically compelled to prosecute. Trump cannot retreat from his public ultimatums without appearing weak to his domestic political base. Khamenei cannot capitulate to American demands without undermining the ideological foundations of the Islamic Republic and inviting internal revolt. The carriers are positioned, the missiles are armed, the threats are issued, and the world holds its breath, wondering whether February 2026 will be remembered as the month diplomacy prevented catastrophe or the month the Middle East erupted into the largest regional war since 1945. We are monitoring developments hourly. We have sources embedded with naval forces in the Arabian Sea. We are tracking every diplomatic contact, every military movement, every public statement. If hostilities commence, we will broadcast live. If you want unfiltered analysis that mainstream media will sanitize until it is too late, subscribe immediately and activate notifications. Iran has drawn its red line. Trump has issued his ultimatum. The region is choosing sides. This is not a drill. This is history accelerating toward inferno. Do not look away.